Hello, it's Tom away again, and today I'm going to talk about sports specificity, sport specific movements. Now, I often see people mimicking the actions of their sport with a resistance of some kind, whether it be dumbbells or cables or resistance bands. Now, for me, I take a different approach, which I believe is obviously more effective, is looking at the determinants of success in that sport. Now, a bit more specific to the gym is where I'm going to go with this, is looking at what type of forces, velocities, joint angles and that kind of thing and occur in your sport, and how you should be directing your training based on that. So this first graph shows us a ground contact in running, and although you think running, because it's body weight, it doesn't really have a lot of forces going through your body, we can see here there's about 2,000 newtons, which is quite a lot, and we can see how quickly that force is having to be generated as well, which is to generate maximal force 0.1 second. We're actually in contact for 0.2 seconds, which is a very short amount of time. So we need to be doing enough strength work to be able to handle our body weight when we're hitting those 2,000 newtons. If we're weak and we can't handle that 2,000 newtons, we're either going to not being able to perform at the highest level, or we're going to be at risk of an injury. Another thing to think about is the velocity of the movement. So how quickly are we moving? Are we able to do the same type of velocities in training? Is doing a squat with a heavy load enough speed to match our sport, or should we be doing something slightly different, such as a barbell jump squat or plyometrics to get the correct velocities, or get near to the correct velocity, should I say. Other things to think about are what muscles, what joints and what movements are occurring in the sport. So if you look at running, we're looking at triple extension through the legs, we're looking at the arm movements, we're looking at trunk movements. So can we keep a stable trunk whilst our legs are moving? Can we control the hips? So we need to be addressing those type of things in the gym, in our training sessions. A different example here is cycling, and this graph quite nicely shows us what muscles are working during specific phases of the leg cycle. So based on that, we can decide how we're going to target each muscle with the exercises that we choose. And then another thing I'm going to touch on here is what type of contraction are you doing in your sport. So let's say it was basketball. There's lots of stopping and starting, changing of direction, a lot of accelerations and decelerations. So we're looking at concentric muscle actions when we're accelerating. We're looking at eccentric actions when we're decelerating, slowing down. And you've got the little bit in between there, the transfer from slowing down to speeding up. So that's more of the stretch shorten cycle and a little bit of slow plyometrics, I would say. Now in swimming, it's different. There is only a concentric aspect to this, as you're only pulling through the water. There's no deceleration, it's only acceleration. And then another completely different sport, if you're looking at BJJ, now here there's a lot of isometric actions, so where we're squeezing a muscle and we're not actually moving, but we're applying a lot of force against the opponent. So that's something we need to take into consideration as well. And finally, we need to look at what are the risks of injury in our sport. Now I'm not talking about contact injuries, because you can't really train to avoid those. It's going to happen in your sport. I'm talking more about non-contact injuries. So in football, ACL injuries are quite common. So is there a training method or approach we should be using to try and minimise the risk of ACL injury, to strengthen the area around the knee so it's less likely to happen? For sprinters, here's another example, it's hamstrings. Should we be doing something specifically to strengthen the hamstrings? In certain sports, the athlete will get into positions which aren't necessarily great for the body. But you need to do that to compete in your sport. So in hockey, players spend a lot of time hunched over as they're trying to dribble with the ball with a stick. So this can put a lot of stress onto the lower back. So what are we going to put in place to combat that? We're at risk of overuse injury here just from doing the sport. So when I talk about sport specificity, we're taking into account all the different aspects I've spoken about and trying to put together a program which covers each of these. So it's a little bit more than just copying your sport with a dumbbell or a weight or a band. If you've got any questions on that, then give me a shout and I'll quite happily go through it with you. Cheers.